All right. I'm going to call to order Town of Middleton Planning Board meeting. Today is January 10th, 2024. We're at the Fuller Meadow School. Please, everybody, mute your phones. First order of business. Minutes from December 13, 23 of the Planning Board. Has everybody here had a chance to look at them?
Yes.
Yes. Anybody have any questions, disagreements, etc.? No? I'll take a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Do we have a second?
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Number 2, ZBA recommendations, Four Forms Way LLC, request for minor modification of approved site plan, request to increase fenced area.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Greg Richard. I'm the attorney for Four Forms Way LLC, the applicant. As you noted, we filed an application for modification for the site plan approval. We were here before this board about a year ago, almost the day, and we had filed a proposed site plan for approval, which was approved by the ZBA, and no comment from this board, just to refresh your memory. That was about 6 months prior to my client purchasing the premises. We had to go through a special permit for use application process as well with the ZBA. That special permit for use was allowed by the ZBA, so in June of this past year, 2023, my client closed on the property, started doing the renovations with the original site plan. As it was being, if I can go to the board.
Please.
As it was being
Could I just explain what this
Yeah.
is? I just
Looks like a nice
overlaid,
overlay,
I
yeah.
overlaid the two site plans so that you can see clearly. The blue is the new area. The orange is what was approved last year.
Yep.
Is that helpful, or I can?
Yeah, it is helpful,
Okay.
yeah. So as we were starting to, my client was starting to put in the fencing areas in on the site, particularly on this side area, they realized that there's two large bay doors, one here, and then there's a third regular sized door in the middle. My client's use for this property is a kennel, doggy daycare. So when they were doing this for from a business standpoint and primarily from a safety standpoint, having this whole area fenced in was paramount, because if any of the dogs escaped or got out any of those sides, they wanted to have it enclosed. So, in full disclosure, this fencing area has been fenced in, and when Scott Fitzpatrick went out to review the site compared to the site plan for the occupancy permit, that's when he, commented to my client that, this is, a much larger fenced-in area than what was originally proposed. We're going to have to come back for approval in order for my client to get an occupancy permit. We did go back to the ZBA last month to request just for a simple minor modification to the site plan. Their comments were they want us to reapply, have it published, and have the butters notified, for this modification rather than do it through just a minor site plan, minor modification. They viewed the fencing area, about 3 times the size of what it was originally proposed. So basically we're just looking to, request the approval for the increased fence area there. We did make a couple additional changes that, maybe a little bit more minor as well, but originally we had proposed permeable pavers in this area. My client, after the fact, has decided that the permeable pavers aren't necessary, so they're going to leave it grassed. They have fence in the area with, it's 8-foot white vinyl fence on 3 sides. The ZBA had approved, they wanted privacy slats. If we did chain link, they wanted privacy slats. My client actually put up the vinyl 8-foot privacy fence, so it's even more private than the chain link with the slats. The dumpster originally was going to be here where parking space 14 is now. It was moved to the other side, and the ZBA approved 20 parking spaces, and we did a bit of a reconfiguration parking spaces 1 through 11, 12, 13, and then 14 through 20 on this side to have just a little bit better flow. But that's basically, it. Those are the modifications, and we are looking to just, hopefully move this through with you as well as the ZBA, and we apologize for having to take up your time, and we appreciate it, but this isn't something that my client is, thrilled about. I think there was a big miscommunication on my client's part of what they could do from a building code or from a code standpoint versus complying with the site plan, and, so for that, my client does feel badly and apologizes for going through this process.
So was it just an oversight that led to the larger fenced-in area? Was it needs-based or?
It was
contractor?
more so needs-based, but the misunderstanding was, there's an 8-foot fence in the back, which, we had to get approval for that by the ZBA, and which we did. This area is a 6-foot tall fenced-in area, which from a building code standpoint, you don't need to pull a permit. So, my client mistakenly, took that as, I don't need a permit for it, I can do it, notwithstanding the fact that, that doesn't mean that you don't have to get the approval of the site plan, on the site plan for that. So that was really the oversight.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'll let the rest of the board know that I have been on the site over the last couple of weeks, and, it looks appropriate. It looks fine. I personally don't have an issue with it.
How about where the dumpster is now? Is it?
I think it's in a
the
better
street?
place.
in a
It's
better
it's
street.
farther away from 114, so.
Okay.
it's
So that's away from
less.
114.
Yeah, 114 is the gray on
Yeah,
the top
right,
there.
Right
Yeah.
there, yeah. Okay.
Any other questions? Any comments?
I don't, the dumpster was my thing.
Welcome.
I'd like to make a motion for a positive recommendation to the ZBA.
We have a second?
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night, all. All right, 229 Maple Street, Deepak and Sandoya, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Sandia, sorry, thank you. Trustees of Curo Real Estate, permit to expand existing non-conforming structure and/or use and to reduce number of required parking spaces. Is there anybody here to?
Hello, Jill Mann here on behalf of the trust. Here with me tonight is Love Carrier. He is the son of the trustees and one of the principals or beneficiaries. So this particular project, just overview, it's House Station. So everybody knows where House Station is, at the intersection of Gregory, Maple, and East. This is really an attempt to continue with the renovation of this part of Middleton. It all started with when Rich LaFosse put up LaFosse Dental, and we had that corner really improved, and it looks beautiful. And then Mr. McKinley redid that daycare, which made that look beautiful. Goddard School came in, that looked beautiful. And now the carriers really would like to make House Station more of a commentary. When you come in, you look, you're like, what a quaint place. As it exists today, it's old Middleton, right? That's what, when we were at the Department Review meeting, a couple people, it's old Middleton, and of course, we Middletonians get a little insulted and say, what do you mean by that, right? But it's older Middleton. It's like, with the older buildings that came in, you put something up, you put it fast, and then you can serve the public. What they're trying to do is really improve it, and that means improve access by their customers and improve the exterior. So it's going to be about a 512, so roundabout, they're going to put up a 512 square foot addition. The purpose of the addition is to improve the utility within the building. We've all been there. It's tight in there. When you go in, you can see how they're trying to be very, very inventive with regard to storage. There really is only a very small partial basement. There's not a lot of storage for the facility. And then upstairs, they've always had a dwelling unit. And it's currently a 2-bedroom unit. And they would like to first expand the first floor a bit, and then also create on the second floor, out of that single unit, make it 2 1-bedroom units. The existing unit is a 2-bedroom. So that's what the whole 512 square feet is about. And this is how it's going to end up setting. So you maintain the exact number of parking spaces, 4 in back, 4 in front, 5 in back. You know, we're still working out some of the components, because when we met with the department review, they wanted us to get back to them with how we're going to flow through the parking lot, and we're going to be giving them a flow analysis, which the engineer is working on. Because in the current condition, if you've ever accessed House House Station, every time you park there, you back into a right-of-way, right? So you back into 114, you back into Gregory Street, that's the way you do it. So we're trying to be a little more inventive and make it so that the parking lot is completely contained, and when you back up, you back into a cutout, and then you pull forward like you do in normal parking areas. And that's why you see this little piece here. What some of the comments have been, just to be completely transparent, is how does a van maneuver? And that's what we're trying to work out. So it's possible we might have to relocate where we would put that handicap space, but we feel pretty confident the engineer can actually show how the traffic pattern works, and that it's safe, and that it's an accessible parking area. So I really, Katrina, would it be possible, can I flip this myself? No.
I think it works
Look at me,
anymore.
I know, I always try, I think I'm gonna be like, if we could just go, I'd love to show you the rendering.
It's one of the last pages.
Yeah, it's the very last one, actually. Or last two.
Joe, quick question before you get there.
Please, yeah.
You had mentioned vans. What about delivery trucks?
That's a good question. So in the normal course, Mr. Carroll, the way they had been, I'm so sorry, Katrina, I hate to do this, but can you flip back to that first page again? I apologize.
Michael.
It's easier to show you on the site plan. No, it's my fault. I was pushing through. So all the way to the first page, I'm sorry. You could stay there, I guess, too.
Right here.
I know the engineer squished these things 2 sheets on a page. It makes me crazy. I'm sure it makes you crazy. Is it possible to blow it up, Katrina, like the plus? Yeah, please.
I saw that you know now how to work this machine, don't you?
Better than most. I can
I
work
did have it
that.
all set up for you today.
Better than me.
I'll do it. So, Mr. Carroll, your point. Normally, what they had done, I shouldn't even say normally, a few times what the trucks were doing is they were coming in and they were literally backing into the space. So they'd come down, they'd come over, down Gregory, come back and back in, and then they would hang into Gregory Street. So the carriers didn't particularly care for that. And what's funny is, of course, it's memorialized on Google. If you Google the image, that's the only image that comes up. There's a big truck parked there. It probably happened 3 times, but Google Earth captured it. So now what they do, and you can see it at any time you drive by when they have deliveries, and they have them, what, twice a week?
Twice a week.
The big trucks will come and they pull in here, and then they park, and they come out, and they bring their dolly, and they move it in. And that's all done within the shoulder. So because you have there's like the parking area in front, you know how they have that space? They even block it off and make the shoulder with a white line, so the truck just comes and doesn't impede the flow like it shows on that picture.
Right.
So that's how they do it presently. Sometimes, ever since COVID, and I only know because I you know, where my office is, and I abut where Maggie's Farm is, and they get deliveries constantly. And after COVID, you couldn't get drivers, so they would bring in huge 18-wheelers constantly. Now it's back to sometimes they do little bit smaller trucks, which is wonderful, right? But during COVID, you took whatever the hell you could get, and that meant drivers who would drive once with the huge trucks. But it's starting to get better with smaller vehicles again. But every once in a while, especially with liquor deliveries, that's what they bring. But so I hope that answers your question. So that's how they do it, and the loading area continues to be right here. So they pull in with the dollies, they come and they load off.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Of course. Now, you want to go all the way to the end again, Katrina? I'd like to show this picture first because,
Oh, we missed it.
Yeah.
it's at the
Very,
end of the
very
application. I'm sorry, I think it's 18.
Are you sure?
It's like 18 or 20. Oh,
I
there you go.
changed things around.
26, I'm sorry.
Oh,
So
This one good?
So when you look at this picture, all the signs, they were done by the architect who loves signage. So, and this was the point that was raised during our DRG meeting. You know, this isn't going to be there. We just, you know, they put stuff on. This isn't going to be there. Currently, there are 3 signs on the building. We're not looking for any relief. We're not looking for any special permits to add signs. There's a sign on the side, there's a sign on the front, and there's that sign right there, the projectile sign. We don't usually allow them in Middleton anymore, but that predated. So all of those 3 signs will continue. There will be no pylon sign on the property because there's no place to put it. But again, we always get a little carried away. So that we are actually, on our site plan, it showed the pylon, but it didn't show all of the plans, and I specifically did not request it in our application. So we're going to update all of those renderings and plans when we deliver to the ZBA, and you can even mention that in your recommendation, but those signs, there'll be the 3
They're already.
locations. Those 3 locations will remain, and that's all that will be shown on the final plans delivered to the ZBA. So, I mean, I think this is, a really attractive building. I think it's a huge improvement. I mean, I'd love to be able to drive down and see something like this as well. The economics of it mean we do need to gain something, right? You just can't do this kind of wholesale redevelopment without something. That's why they're looking to expand the store, increase square footage, increase retail sales. And then they are looking to add the unit. The reason to add the unit is because currently they have a 2-bedroom unit. This particular property doesn't scream for having a couple, or a family. I mean, it's not really an appropriate thing to have, number one. Number two, they rent to people who they know, who are in the area, who they're related to, who they know somehow. So the current tenant is only utilizing 1 bedroom. And he has a cousin who would love to rent the other bedroom, a 1 person, but not necessarily in the same apartment. So that's kind of like the push and pull we face, is that, we have a 2-bedroom, we have 2 permissible bedrooms, can we go for 1 and 1? That's why we're looking to expand.
So you're looking to make 2 one-bedroom apartments.
Exactly. And there was concern.
Could this be qualified as something we're looking for on our tally, like affordable?
So
Okay, so.
If you'll give us a moment, sir.
Yeah, of course.
That was an option, if they were going to go forward with a second unit at the Development Review Group meeting. I have to say, it wasn't, a lot of the department heads didn't have a favorable reaction to this. However, you're just looking at the site. You're not looking at other things. But you should be looking at septic, parking, things on the outside of the building. When you say a 2-bedroom, now we've found out that the septic was permitted for a 1-bedroom.
And it's actually not, so it's hard because we don't have we have a new Board of Health director who read the approval specifically and appropriately. However, when the project was approved, it was a 2-bedroom unit. It always had been, always was. And there was a mistake. This is from the engineer. And again, I have not had a chance to talk to Ms. Mello, the Board of Health director, so I'm not going to tell you this is definitively that I'm 100% right. I'm only telling you that there is not necessarily confirmation that the 1-bedroom was appropriately placed as being a 1-bedroom unit, not 2, because it's been a 2-bedroom unit permitted with building permits the whole bit for a very long time. So there's some disconnect, and I need to work that out with the Board of Health. So I will say to you this, I can't make a representation that Ms. Mello is not 100% right or 100% wrong. I hate to say that, because I've been trying to get in touch to talk to the engineer once I received the comment, and I, of course, never got a call back. I get this email that says, I already had a conversation with the Board of Health director before when we started the project, that there was a miscommunication. He agreed that it was supposed to be a 2-bedroom unit, but again, I can't, Ms. Mello isn't, so I'm not going to do that. So there is an issue relative to Board of Health approval. There is an issue relative to septic. I'm going to fix it. You're more than welcome to put in your letter, look, you have to remedy this. If you want to make a recommendation, we have to remedy it. And we
Well, I
do.
guess more to my question is,
Yeah.
is the theory that your client is running with right now that this could theoretically be affordable level housing?
It is affordable level housing, because in Middleton, right, the cost of an apartment, because it's based on 80% mean income, is huge.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's not affordable.
That's all I want to know. Because, I mean, if we
Would
could,
they agree to deed restrict it?
We have to, I have never, this is the first time it's come up, because I will tell you that the rents they generate, because I do know what they generate, it is affordable under the regs, but I need to talk to them. And while Love is here, he still needs more information from me about that. But it'd be great to get us on our ISO. ISHO, what is it?
SHI.
SHI. I knew I had the right acronym, I just couldn't put them in the right order. So we need to have a conversation about that. but I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just thought of it because it's currently a hot-button issue with everybody, so, you know.
Huge issue.
So it's not that the board is really looking at that aspect of it. You're asked to look at the outside and the parking and the sewer and the drainage, et cetera, which is difficult because you can't hire a peer reviewer to review it for you, and none of you are engineers. However, one thing that I think you should take a look at is they're asking for a second unit and also asking for a parking waiver to provide less than the required amount of parking for the residential units.
So why don't I explain more?
And so,
And I would love
so
to.
just take a look at the parking areas, and if you feel comfortable with it, then that's fine. The ZBA will take a thorough look at it.
Right, okay.
But that was raised at the DRG meeting too, is the amount of parking.
Right, so the reason we asked for the waiver from parking is because Middleton requires 2 spaces per dwelling, whether it's a 1-bedroom or a 6-bedroom, 2 spaces. It's silly, right? It's not really up to speed. And if you have a 1-bedroom unit that we actually will restrict in the future leases and do restrict now to 1 individual per unit, it makes sense to restrict it, to allow the waiver. So there are reasons for the waiver that maybe aren't, fully contemplated in our bylaw. I mean, literally, I can put a 3-bedroom unit there, 3-bedroom unit, and get 2 parking spaces, and I don't need a waiver. To me, it makes no sense. But again, that waiver is something we're seeking, and it goes through, it does go through the planning board, and they haven't heard about this restriction on the lease, because I quite frankly didn't know they restricted it like that. But they do restrict it to 1 person, 1 parking space. You can't have more. Period.
This is the perfect time to.
You just have to say your name.
Yeah, of course. My name's Love Kari. I'm with the Kari family for House Station Market, and this is the perfect time for your first question about what's the client approach here on affordable housing and what's the plan to run with that. And we took a look at the master plan 300. We took a look at the sidewalk plan. We've owned this for over 23 years, and we're not going anywhere. We wanted to make sure first it fit with the community, and we were deliberate about that, on making sure we maintain the character both on the outside and the inside of the store, because that's our customer base. They don't want to go to a new location. They just want to see it cleaned up and beautified. That's it. And we don't want to do oversale or neon lights or all that fancy stuff, because that's not the character of that corner or our store. Secondly, for the second unit, and the concerns are all valid, and we heard about these yesterday morning, and we're already working. She already called the engineer last night, and the parking, and it's all valid, and we're going to address that. For the unit upstairs, we currently rent it to a person that works at a gas station down the road. That's not our gas station we own, or we don't know them familiar or family or anything like that. But we think it's important to provide jobs in our town, and that's a second unit that we will restrict to 1 person for 1 parking, if that makes sense, because a waiver is needed for each unit. We need 2, but if we limit to 1 bedroom and 1 parking per unit, and we limit the lease to just 1 person, we're willing to work to make sure, to see if it can make sense with the parking. That's what we're willing to do as well, because we find it important to provide jobs. Not everyone has these beautiful homes that rise in Middleton. We personally just moved here last year. We love them, and it makes a ton of sense, but we want to provide that rental affordable unit, and the goals are outlined in our housing. You guys all have been a major part of it, so I don't want to read all that, but we're deliberate on that to make sure this is a center of town that we highlighted in our plan, the intersection of Maple and Gregory, that needs help. Those sidewalks, and according to the sidewalk walk plan, we're not required to do so, but we're like, no, not only do we want it to make sense, because it's the corner, it's an intersection of a signal light. Why isn't there a sidewalk there? That's the first thing we had our person draw in, and then we hired a local landscape architect, a local engineer, a local attorney, because that's what we're about. That's what this project's about, and that's what we're running with.
Okay.
Question for you, with the new sidewalk, I know on that sidewalk now, typically that's where the delivery vehicle is, right?
Yeah, that's memorialized too in Google, yeah.
And
right
that's-
here.
Is that going to be utilizing one of the spots?
No.
So this is what's the beautiful part, Mr. Goriel, is it used to be like a sea of pavement, right? So everybody, that big black, and it's beautiful, because I parked there, not knowing that it was a sidewalk, right? So now, because of their renovation plans, they're gonna put the grass strip, they're gonna make it the bituminous. It looks like a sidewalk, there's no way to park.
Exactly, and
And you can see it. So, I mean, we are actually beautifying it because this building sits 4 feet from the property line. That's the existing condition. So you have a beautiful, you have 4 feet of grass, strips going each way, and then that sidewalk is actually large enough, is an accessible sidewalk. So it does make sense the way they've done it. It wraps around behind their building. The one point is you can, go ahead. Yeah,
ADA.
it is ADA compliant. The architect didn't do it. So when you look at the actual site plan, it has the ramp. We know what you have to do. You have to have the rumbles. We all know how it's supposed to be. As I said, and I talked about this at the meeting, we didn't take a plan and redo it again.
Right. This is a
Basically, because
vision.
it doesn't cost huge money, but it costs a fair amount of money to redo it because we have 4 spaces, not 3. Because, I mean, here, we have 1 space, not 3. The way it's designed, you can see how it has 3 there. We didn't do that because we only had 1 existing.
1 or 3.
1, because we don't have the right to increase the number of parking on Middleton's right-of-way. Now, should we go to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Selectmen tell us, you know what, we prefer you to make more parking there, do 3, then we will, but we're not permitted to do that without pre-approval from them, and we want this project to move forward. We want to see if we can get it approved. So once we know that, then we're going to go to the Board of Selectmen, because this is all the town's property here. And while we're proposing to improve it, we still need to go to do some of the modifications.
And I like the fact that the dumpster is not going to be, it looks like in an enclosure, it's
Yeah.
not sitting out
Yep.
there in the parking
Absolutely.
lot.
And that's the beautiful part. And what else is really nice is the front. If you go to the next image, Katrina, if you don't mind. Oh, I'm sorry, the first image. There you go.
This one?
Yeah, the front is so much better improved. So you know how you walk up there now, it's not the most beautiful entrance in the world, and this really makes it modernizes, improves the facade. I mean, I think it looks, I personally like it a lot. I mean, I think it's a good image. And somebody said, but how do you make people build it? I said, well, you make people build it because you can't get an occupancy permit until you accomplish this particular structure. And I think we're seeing, you just had that other hearing, you're seeing Mr. Fitzpatrick laying the hammer down basically and saying, look, if you don't comply, I'm not giving you a certificate of occupancy. And that would be crushing to their business. So we're going to do whatever it takes and whatever's on the plan. But we do need to be able to utilize a second residential unit in order to do it. I'm saying within the confines of Title V, I have to work through it with Ms. Mello. She raised an issue, I have to address it specifically with her, and I will do that. With regard to the parking, which also I said was an issue, the engineer needs to come up with a plan showing exactly how access will work, and he's already doing it to provide like turning radiuses to put forward and bring to the board and to have vetted by Mr. Fitzpatrick and by Chief Lacoste so that we are sure that everything works. The other big advantage when we do something like this is now, because we're doing such a major renovation, the entire property will now have full fire protection. So spring, everything's going to be changed. He's going to have to make the entire building code compliant, which it isn't, but it will be now. So it actually provides that improvement too, so you're providing additional benefit for fire and safety. And as Mr. Carey just told you, we're definitely going to look into the affordable component and not work with Ms. O'Leary on that because, we truly never thought about it, but I can, what the pricing is. We've all worked with the affordable housing, right? So we know what those limits are, and I know how much he charges, and it's the same, if not less.
And if it's rental, both of them will count.
Yeah,
Yep.
both.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. So, I mean, I think
That would be
that
an
I
awesome start. A long time
conversion,
Be
right?
compliant.
to be compliant with some affordable housing in this town, so.
I mean, I think it's a wonderful thing. I've tried to push affordable housing. I like it. And everybody thinks to allow our children to stay in town, our elderly to stay in town, and quite frankly, for people to move into town who have jobs here, who can actually afford to live here. And that, I think, was your point.
It's Maine. It's Maine.
But do you have other questions? Do you want to go to the site plan again? So you can ask.
Are you going to stay open through renovation, or how are you going to work with the
That's a
current business?
great question, and the biggest battle we're having is, do we do a quicker project? Does it close at certain times of, like, let's say if it's like a smaller portion, but we close, how does that impact? We open during certain hours, how does that impact, the project? So we have 4 contractors that are currently doing site visits of providing their estimates and providing 2 different plans, because that's our question to them is, if we do a shorter project that's quicker and that makes us close a little longer, what does that mean and what's the cost there? And how many days would that be? Versus a little longer project where we don't have to close as much, but like, we go, like, literally, this is what we talk about at dinner, because we're like, what if people drive by for a while? Like, if I was a customer at a different store and I saw construction for a while, I'd be like, oh, I could just drive, I will just skip that one for now. It looks a little busy and it looks like a little, there's a ton of traffic, and I'll come back later. We don't want that to happen for a long time. Like, we can't have that, we simply wouldn't survive. So that's the back and forth that we're going, and we have all 4 contractors providing both estimates.
Did you have a question?
I do. So with the septic, Jill, it's gonna be 2-bedroom septic, no matter what.
No matter what, we have to go back
Yeah.
to Ms. Mello and
Yeah.
either prove that it's an existing system that can handle 2 bedrooms.
Yeah.
If they deem it available for a variance, because don't forget, our town says 150 gallons per unit.
Yeah.
Title V says 110 gallons per unit. I don't know, and this is where I'm not sure, and why I have to say to you, I have no idea, is because did the town approve it based on 110? Did it give it, I have no idea, and I don't think anything's in the file. I know nothing's in the file. It basically says 1 bedroom on the plan.
Okay, so right
I have to
now,
prove that out.
they have a 1-bedroom septic on the property, and they, is that right or wrong? Am I missing something?
This is what I was told by the health director.
Okay.
And then she was going to get a
Yeah.
hold of you and let you, or I let you know as
You
soon as
let me
she
know.
gave me the comment on it, because I knew you were going back to the applicant and talking about this problem. And so I think it was permitted for 1 bedroom, and they happen to have another room, like a study or something, and now it's being called a 2-bedroom. And with that information, they are looking to have 2 1-bedrooms when it was really a 1-bedroom to begin with. And so that issue needs to be straightened out. We need to figure out what is the truth.
So when this renovation takes place, I understand that, but when the renovation takes place, it will be brought up to a 2-bedroom septic, is that correct?
Yes, under
Regardless.
whatever Ms. Mello
If it's
dictates,
possible,
yes.
if
Based on the
not,
septic.
No
yeah,
matter what, I will get Board of Health approval
Yeah.
with regard to the system and the
Yeah.
current uses of the property. I have absolutely.
Okay.
So even, for example, even if I got this approved, has nothing to do with what I can do. I can get something approved and not be able to build it because I can't do the right building plans. I have to demonstrate
Yeah.
Board of Health and everything. So yes, by the time I get this permitted and I finish, I'm gonna have answers. I'm hoping to have answers, I was hoping to have answers before tonight, but I don't. But I'm hoping to have answers literally before the end of the week, because I owe Ms. Mello a call back and literally got the email from the engineer at 6:20.
okay, thank you.
Jason, you got something?
No, I was just asking, you're still gonna keep the deli counter?
Of course. Why?
I was just looking at the conformity on the,
Because Mr. Bernhardt
Yeah,
likes it.
So
I've never had a sandwich there a day in my life.
Oh!
I've lived in this town 45 years.
So and a funny story about the sandwiches, we have the same recipe for over 65 years of the regular pre-made subs, the turkey and cheese. So it's the same and that's a big staple when the customers come in, they're like, a 60-year-old said that when I was a kid, I used to get from the same deli. And we don't want, that's like our bread, that's our business, that's our bread and butter. So we got a new machine, but the deli counters are gonna stay in that same location, for sure.
Katrina, do you have anything that you want to add?
I don't. I appreciate that they did put the sidewalk along, because the rail trail is just a couple lots down from
Yeah.
them.
Right behind.
Yeah.
It's right behind.
Yeah, there's
I
the
don't know how to-
pizza, and then a house, and then a driveway, and
then
then
the-
the rail trail. And so that's a nice amenity. And again, yeah, the DRG didn't go very well yesterday, but you are looking at sidewalk, the circulation on the lot, parking, et cetera, and so you're really limited to what you're looking at. And if you don't
Right.
see anything wrong with what you're looking at, then you can offer a positive recommendation.
And so we don't even have to put, that has to be a 2-bedroom septic.
Well, that's not going to be up to us. That's going to
Yeah,
be more
that's
up
up
to
to them. That's the Board of
zoning
Health.
and- Yeah.
Right,
zoning
but I
and-
mean,
Yeah.
even though you have a limited jurisdiction, I think it's important for you to know the whole scope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to analyze something in a vacuum.
No, and
so-
I appreciate that, because, I mean, I would have never thought of potentially adding 2 units into our affordable housing
Right, if we
bucket,
can.
if, you know, so.
And it's rental, so we get qualified. It
Yeah.
would be an awesome thing to do.
Adamar, do you have anything? Good. All right, so I will take a carefully worded motion.
My only concern right now is the park. My main concern, I should say, is the parking, especially when you're having deliveries with that new overhead door kind of by the ramp on the side there. The fact that now we're maintaining the same number of parking spaces, but we're actually going to be using the parking spaces rather than parking on the sidewalk with, the delivery vehicle that's always there. And, I've been there quite a bit, actually. I drive by there every day on my way to and from work. I always make that illegal right-hand turn through the parking spaces onto Gregory Street. No one ever parks there in the morning, if that's not the problem, is the morning parking. But during peak hours and delivery, the parking is my big concern right now.
And you know what? We don't debate that. But for the most part, people don't park, believe it or not, along 114. You almost never see those parking spaces taken.
That's why I can always make my illegal right-hand turn.
Exactly. And then so it's odd for me to say this, but believe it or not, there really isn't a parking issue there.
Yeah.
And they park on the sidewalk partly because, I don't know, every person I represent says signs, right? So they always want these cars with the signs all over them. So, I mean, I can have you address the issue, but
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to impact them because people don't go there to shop. They go in to grab something and
In and
they
out,
leave.
yeah.
Like, you're maybe in there for 5 minutes. It's boom, boom, boom. So, and I've only been in there when there's one other person and the person behind the desk. So I get it.
And most of the time, I'll park on the other side of Gregory Street by Dunkin' Donuts.
Right, because you're going to cross, because you're actually going the other way. I know. And people, go ahead, I apologize.
One thing I was thinking of is that I believe in this situation, if it's a pair of small one-bedrooms, how many parking spaces do you need for each of those units?
That plus when there's a big delivery truck.
Well, yeah.
And they come twice. This is a small store. They come about twice a week, and when they come, they're in and out in half an hour to 40
And
minutes?
It's Tuesday morning at 10:30 and Thursday morning at
so, like, it's-
11:30. So they don't come during peak. And one more point for the parking point, if we could scroll down to the existing lot of just how our parking currently is.
Existing
Yeah.
is
I
up
think it's
here.
up.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Is that it
That's
or
it.
this?
No, this is
That's
it.
it.
This is perfect. So, right now what they do, we're looking to utilize this space right here. The existing to add the addition. Right now, what most 95% of customers park in the back. No one really parks in the front. They are currently pulling in like this, where the front of the vehicle faces this way, and then they pull out like this into the street.
Which I don't like, because that's potentially dangerous for.
Potentially, I have on record every year about 2 to 3, 4 fender benders of a customer who's, because this is a sharp turn. We would love like a no turn on red sign here, because when there is a red light and people think they can turn here, our poor customers that are pulling out back into the street, they're blindsided.
Yeah.
And why now, if we can go to the new condition, if we can scroll down to the new plan, please, thank you. Now, you are now pulling fully in. We want your vehicle facing inwards and pull safely into the parking, reverse out and face the street. So at no point are you blindsided pulling in or pulling out.
That's why I say to you that I think.
So while the parking is remaining the same, the reconfiguration makes so much sense for the safety of we've literally had this plan, started the drawing in 2021. For 2.5 years been working on this plan. 50% of our customers know it, the regulars that we trust, and we show them this because it really matters what they think too. They're like, what is this? First off, it's possible. We're like, yep, the architect drew it. Secondly, their kids come out and they can sit here, have landscaping here, and be not worried that they're backing up onto the street. So the reconfiguration is huge.
And like I said, the only issue is we need to have the architect vet the existence of the handicap space and how we actually turn. And we can, it's not like this is an immutable spot. It's not, we can shift where we put that, so you have more room for a van to pull out and back out, where a compact car, a smaller car can do it, but the handicap accessible vans may not. So that's why we're working on it. So as far as parking goes, we really do feel that this is a tremendous improvement over a current condition, and will even provide better information as we go forward, given the feedback we've received both tonight and from the DRG yesterday.
On the front facade, where where the existing porch is now,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's not, you're not increasing the size, that's staying the same.
Nope.
You're keeping the ice machine in the same spot, or are you moving it?
We're moving it inside.
So there, if you see, there's no ice machine any longer, so I know that's right.
It's one of
up
the
in-
biggest things for parking, if someone's gonna park there.
Exactly, and so
Dangerous.
actually, it's funny, because Love and I had talked about that yesterday. I'm like, ice machine gone, right? He goes, yes. I said, because it shows on something. He goes, no, it's gone. Look
With
at the
this
site plan.
addition, we're planning like a full freezer, ice machine as you walk into the back door, a brand new ice cream cooler to go into the hot dog machine where the newspapers are. So it all like line up and make sense.
And you
There's a
wanna see-
donation bin and an ice machine right here in the two. They won't be there with this
Do you
renovation.
want to see the layout of the inside?
I-
A minute?
We-
Oh, you got it?
we
Okay.
saw it.
Yeah, we went
Yeah, so you
went
can
through it.
see, as somebody who utilizes the store, you can see the utility. So you see like the expansion of where the coolers are, you can see how you've come in. Also, on the second floor, they're putting in an office for their business, because, you know, right now, you'll see somebody kind of trying to work in one little area, it's crazy. So now they'll put up in that tower-like structure, there'll be a nice accessory office space for basically the family.
Does it make sense to move that handicap spot towards the back on the Gregory side?
That's
Where
what
that
the-
ramp currently
That's what-
starts to go up from that side of
And
the
that's what
building?
Scott Cameron and Jared Bass, I can't say his last,
There.
Barrett is last name? Oh, Jared Barrett.
They're from the Morning Camera Group.
Yeah, so they're working on it to
Okay.
figure out if it makes sense, and to see if the van can pull back and out. So if the van, if the handicap van can come in, pull out, and go out, then we'll leave it as is. If it cannot, then we'll move it.
Okay.
I see that the proposed snow storage area is on town land.
So we talk, yes, great point. You know what, I'm sorry, I should have brought that up, because that is something you would pay attention to, and that is something we talked about, the DRG. So quite frankly, the engineer just stuck it there. We removed the snow from the site, there's no place to put it. Even if we could somehow back in a plow and then plow, you can't do that, it's impossible. So we come in, we're gonna actually remove it from the site, there's no way to do it. And we can't put it, if we put it there, it's gonna go on the sidewalk, and then we're gonna have issues. We can't also dump on town property. You're not even supposed to shovel your driveway that's been shoveled, plowed in onto town property. So we are hauling all our snow off-site.
We also have we have an executed easement for this land right here. We're not utilizing it because that property first needed to become in compliance. So we pursued that. It's not currently in compliance, so we can't utilize this easement, but it's executed, we have it, and we could utilize it down the line. This is a really big step, and, hopefully the corner can continue to, like if we do this here, the same thing can happen at this house, and the same thing can happen here, and it can all become beautiful. But we have an easement there, we're just not using it right now because we're not allowed to.
Okay. Anything else, gents? Adam?
Yeah, my concern is the same, like the parking space, but that you don't have much space.
It never had much space.
Yeah.
It never had much space, so,
But it's very transitory as far as people coming and going.
yeah.
No, like I said,
I mean, I don't even think at nighttime, you'll see, like when there's a transition period
See,
between
you
when
can
the
see a
store is
truck right here.
closing
So
and when
the
the
picture has been
unit
taken.
owner, the
Was
guy,
that
actually, I think the guy who rents there doesn't even have a car, does he?
Walks over.
He walks to and from. But, there are times when you'll see
Let
a
him go
few
there.
spaces filled in the back.
My kid's in a car.
It just is not, it's not that type of store. That's why we
it's
want to
kinda
provide what the required
That makes it better,
minimum is.
you know.
We're just seeking the waiver because it doesn't make sense to require 4 spaces for those 2 units up top. But that's really it. And then we are going to demonstrate, all parking lately is kind of tight. I mean, it is, but you have a 20-foot paved way to actually turn and go out. It's not a site where you're gonna have cross-traffic, it really isn't.
Yeah.
All right. If everybody's done with questions, are we?
Yeah.
Then I'll take a motion.
I make. Hold up, because I can't.
Where is it? Oh, I don't have the motion up here. I just said that. Just make a motion
I make a motion to
to give a positive
give
recommendation.
a positive recommendation for 229 Maple Street, special permit to expand existing non-conforming structure use and to reduce number of required parking spaces. Site plan review?
And to reduce the number of parking spaces?
To
Oh, that's what they're
reduce number of
asking for.
required parking spaces.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, appreciate your time.
Thanks
And I
for
will
taking the
report
time to
back.
explain that to us.
Appreciate it.
Of course, and we'll report back to Katrina, and, you know, she can give you an update next month, or I can.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Definitive subdivisions, discussion on subdivision progress with developers for East Meadow and Ridgewood Estates, phases 2, 3, 5. Bay Development, Ridgewood Estates, 1 and 7. The same old song. What's going on?
Same old song. So I've been, Alan Shockett for the trust, Jill Mann for Bay Development. So we're in the same holding pattern. I apologize. Litigation is the most frustrating aspect of anybody's life, right? And this is part of what's plaguing us. That and the fact that I cannot get the engineer to give me the information I need to be able to give Alan a bid to complete the road, literally. Part of it is because it is such a complicated roadway system, because when East Meadow was first permitted and when LAR first got the permits to do that development, while we did it in phases, it wasn't intended to have 5-year lapses. It was intended to be constructed fairly one off the other. And the road that was supposed to be constructed and completed was the road that we cannot seem to complete and construct, that loops into East Meadow. So therein lies the rub, because a lot of the electrical components, transformers, everybody here knows about transformers, because you hear anything you hear about now, it's like, it was 56 weeks, now it's 66 weeks. Now some people are saying it's 104 weeks, which is 2 full years. It's crazy. So we're trying to get pricing on things, and we're trying to finalize where the stormwater has to go and how we have to do the development. And I need the engineer for that, and so does the developer, to figure out how we allocate the cost. So we are in the same place. I hate to say it, but we are.
Why?
Great question. Because I can't, okay, so I'm gonna start from the very beginning. When we
Actually,
did our.
perhaps if you cut to the chase of what is the rub between these two parties?
We want to, okay, Brent McKinley wants to buy the balance of the property. The trust does not want to sell it, because they say he didn't fully comply with his right to execute the option. And they're presently in litigation regarding it.
That's the why.
Yeah, exactly.
So
That was short.
And that's why I said, like, litigation is at the heart of every, complaint. It's just, it's,
Okay, so
Katrina, is there a way that, well, I know there's a way. Could you talk to Jay Talman and find out if there's anything that the town has as far as legal remedy to push, motivate, kick in the butt, whatever you want to call
bring
it?
together.
Because this
A
is,
mutual
this is
agreement.
getting on, this is ludicrous. You guys both know it.
Yeah.
We can see your faces that you're not happy with it. And, Jay's got to come up with something other than, we don't want to do the road ourselves. That's ridiculous.
Right.
But-
Could you estimate the cost for Brent to maintain East Meadow
right now, how much you
without
paying?
it being accepted? I mean, I was talking to Brian earlier
You have to-
about this, that there is incentive right now for him to finish.
So Mr. McKinley currently maintains Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, and East Meadow independently.
East
He
Meadow
doesn't
is
want to.
how many years old now? 5 or 6?
It has to be
Yeah, it's
six.
almost
If he
six,
waits any
6
longer, the
years.
town may
Six.
not want to accept it. They may say, we want you to pave it again. The
Yeah.
pavement isn't in perfect condition, or,
Yeah.
you know, so,
Oh, we're not thrilled, trust me. If there's anything Mr. McKinley could do to get it accepted, he would. You know, he is, East Meadow, for all intents and purposes, if you go up there, is finished. It has everything it possibly needs. It's finished. It's gone all the way. It is paved and has utility stubs all the way to the property that it abuts for Ridgewood. Everything. But we can't connect, because there's no other roadway. So there is tremendous incentive. And don't forget, we do have phase one. There's a lot of roadway that he is maintaining that cannot be accepted by the town or maintained by the town because that connection isn't there.
Yeah.
but I personally don't know of any other thing. We don't want to take the bonds. Why would we want to become the developer? And so that's our usual leverage. But I will run it by Jay to say, can you think of any way to incentivize the two parties
Because I mean,
Coming
come to some
together.
kind of
to me,
agreement?
thinking of it as a representative of the town, it sounds to me almost like this is, for lack of a better phrase, breach of contract. Because they promised to do all this stuff and, you know, within a timely order, and now they're fighting amongst themselves. And obviously, it's not, it's their clients, it's not them, it's their clients.
You know what,
But
we can learn some lessons from this. The first thing is, in
not let two
phased
parties start developing
developments.
together again?
Well, no, we just revised our subdivision regulations, and there are new regulations concerning phased development, too.
Yeah.
We wouldn't just allow 7 phases with no real time limit on it. They weren't even recorded at the Registry of Deeds. You know, they're recorded when the developer is ready. And so that's kind of a very loose way to oversee a subdivision process. We could still get large subdivisions, but we'll be more careful about phasing it.
Yes, we will.
Because, but we were careful. I wasn't here at the time when this was approved. Each phase does have a cul-de-sac.
Oh, yeah, oh.
And so they have to build the cul-de-sac because at any point, the developer could say, the market isn't good, I'm not gonna finish this.
But the only one that
I'm not gonna finish
doesn't-
it, but he'd have to build the cul-de-sac at that, where he ended.
come up in.
So
The only one that doesn't is the phase we're
Phase
arguing
you're
about.
talking about.
So
It's the
there's
only
an
one
issue.
that doesn't have it.
Oh, because East Meadow.
Because East
That's
Meadow
the
can
issue.
Supposed
connect
to
through.
connect.
That's what we
Yeah, so
dealt
there's
with.
no-
That's what we dealt with a few, over the summer, we dealt with this when Brent was like, I'll just make it a cul-de-sac and end it. And, you know, because he has the right to do that. But no, he wanted to go through. If you look at the plans and if you go through everything you look, it's the only one in there that has a connection for a throughway because the fire department wanted that to
100%.
go through.
So when we did it, when we approved East Meadow, we got a waiver for the length of roadway because LAR's property had yet to be approved. I permitted them. So we got the right to have a cul-de-sac on East Meadow. When we did LAR, we designed it to connect to East Meadow because East Meadow was already approved and there was a requirement to allow Ridgewood to connect. So there is no cul-de-sac for the end of this street.
Simca.
Simca, no. That's where the issue lies. I mean, I think the two of us are trying to motivate our clients to, get it through. But I'm telling you that I really have had a very difficult time having the engineer give me the breakdown on how we allocate the costs of this road. It has been nuts.
Yeah, because Brent has everything already at the end of East Meadow.
You know.
Everything's sitting there.
Yes.
It's there. It's just
The good news,
parties with a connector. That's all it
Good
is.
news is
Who's
that-
gonna pay to connect it through?
everyone that lives up there is on a finished roadway.
Oh, goodness, yes.
There's no unfinished roadways in front of them. There, you can see where construction will happen, but at least for a while, East Meadow, we had a lot of complaints because the final coat wasn't down.
finished it, yeah.
And it's all finished. So that's a good thing. And in fact, they could just stop right now and not finish the rest of the
Yeah, for a
subdivision,
long
and
time, a lot of the
everyone would be
sidewalks
fine.
weren't- A lot of the sidewalks weren't finished.
Right,
up
but
there for a long time either.
when we met with Mr. Goodwin, the DPW inspector, he was adamant that he wanted that water connection to connect, because when the approval went through, it shows a looped line, and so it's far better to have a loop than two dead ends, and he basically told Brent he wouldn't sign off on the release of our bond, because we tried, I think when did we come here? Like in August with a request to release? And Paul Goodwin said, no, you have to keep it on until you connect. So he's providing us with tremendous incentive.
But I will run the question by Jay Tallerman. But I would suggest that we have them back here in another 3 months. Was it 3 months the last time?
It was 3 months. If you can provide us, even if it's 3 months, wonderful. 2 months, okay. I mean, I would beg you not to make us come back in February, because I don't know how much I can accomplish in 1 month. Do you? Yeah, so if it pleased the board, 3 months would be beautiful, but I would understand if you wanted to force our hand and did too.
I mean, if it came back in 3 months and all of a sudden, you know, you guys miraculously do something
Come
next
together.
month,
I'll come in.
just come in and throw it.
Yeah.
I can assure, because you only need 48 hours.
Correct.
Because this is just a public meeting, so, I mean, if I get information, I assure you, you will get it.
So in April.
That, if it pleases the board, that would be wonderful.
April?
April is fine.
All right.
All right,
April it is. Get your
All right.
rubber mallets and go talk to your clients.
appreciate it, thank you.
Bye.
All righty. Hopefully something better. Greg and Gina,
Are you here for anything?
Lightner Way subdivision.
Are you here for anything? Oh, okay. Oh, all right. We would have taken you ahead then.
So is Lightning right here?
Yes, you want me to explain?
Please do.
So the Lightner Way subdivision, I believe it was approved back in like 2007 or 2008. There's 9 lots on it. It's been done for a while now. We still hold a bond because as a condition of approval, the first iteration of this condition was that the developer build a sidewalk from Lightner all the way to Vera Lane. There was a disagreement on that condition, and he believed he was only supposed to design plans and not build it. And so we did a major modification to change the condition so that we just had design plans for the length of Essex Street. The engineer started working on it and came to us and said, listen, I feel guilty working on these because I'm doing these design plans for a sidewalk that I know the town will never build because there was so much filling of wetlands that had to occur. Remember, Essex Street here is actually on the old rail right-of-way that went through swampland, that was just filled and
It's
old
the biggest
Essex-
turtle crossing we've got, yeah.
Yeah, Old Essex is that curvy, narrow road over here, and sometime in the 1960s, I guess, it was relocated to the rail right-of-way, and so there's steep drop-offs and wetlands, and there's no room for a sidewalk. I'm not sure, we would have to build some kind of scaffolding or something to put a sidewalk in there. And he said, you're never gonna build it, I mean, I can do this, but it's a waste. So we talked to him about doing something that was more useful, design plans for the rail trail from Essex to Old Essex. And as you all know, we have built the rail trail from the Danvers line up to Essex Street, and Rich Williams from Williams and Sparages has finished the plans for the portion from Essex to DeBush to like Dixie. And the plan is, hopefully, that then the rail trail will continue just on the road on Old Essex Street, because remember, Essex is very narrow, there's no place for a sidewalk, and then you can continue up on the rail trail, because it goes into the woods again. So we have the plans, we are holding 50,000, there's no reason to hold anything, we can fully release this subdivision, and, yeah, just vote
So
to
they've
release
lived up
the
to their
50,000.
commitment.
If you want, I can read the
Okay.
correspondence from Paul Goodwin.
Sure, please.
From Paul Goodwin, January 8th, 2024, Lightner Way subdivision, to Brian Carroll, Planning Board Chair. Please be advised, it's my understanding all requirements have been fulfilled for the Lightner Way subdivision, including the latest design of rail trail plans from Essex Street to DeBush Ave to Old Essex Street. The $50,000 performance bond can now be released. On a side note, we should also read into the record that it's also our understanding this subdivision will always be private and no maintenance will ever be the responsibility of the towns. I highly recommend that this caveat stays. Paul Goodwin, Superintendent.
So, Paul's happy, you're happy? I'll take a motion.
I'd like to make a motion.
Please step up and if you would speak to the mic
Say
and
your name, please.
name and address if you would, please.
Hi, my name is Silvana Parina, and my children, 3 of them just moved on to Lightner Way. So I didn't realize that there was the street, I know that it's a private road, but have all of the conditions been met for that road?
Yes.
Conservation, everything? I
So
don't know, I'm new.
conservation is something separate. That is all permitted separately. And I don't know if everyone has closed out their permits for
Right, but for you to
conservation.
release the bond, that means that you're satisfied that the road is built, the as-built, all of that?
You were actually satisfied years ago, and the only reason we're holding this 50,000 is because there was one condition that they hadn't met regarding the sidewalk that turned into the
And that hasn't
plans
been
for the rail
met?
trail.
So that has nothing to do with
No, it
conservation?
has. We received the plans, that's why
So
it's
you
on
have
the agenda.
as-built? The as-built?
The as-bills were accepted years ago
Oh, okay.
for that.
Okay. So you're all,
Are there
My
any
kids should
problems
not
you
have any
see on
issues.
the
Is there a
road?
conservation issue that
no,
you're?
no, I just don't know if, everything is, where it's a private road. I just wanted to make sure that everything was set with the town, that's all. I'm new, we're just
If you
homeowners.
want to check to see
Yeah.
if all the wetlands permitting has been closed out, you can contact our conservation agent and ask
So
her.
one has nothing to do with the other?
No.
I see. Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, not at all.
Just, I have 3 sons there, I just wanted to make sure that they were all set. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, I'll take a motion to cut a $50,000 check.
I'll make a motion to release the $50,000 performance bond, and also reading into the record that this will remain a private way.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So completed. Alrighty. The proposed zoning amendments, I believe we're tabling, is that right?
Yep.
Okay, so, well, let me explain why first, because I know people probably see this and they're interested, and they're all watching on TV, right? We were going to talk about the zoning amendments that will be proposed at this spring town meeting. They're not ready yet. The actual schedule for this that I had made up and that the consultant is working off actually had us receiving these zoning amendments a little later and holding our public hearing in March rather than February. But at last week's, was it last week?
Yeah.
The joint meeting with the Affordable Housing Trust, we heard that people were eager for us to start the process and so that the residents could see these zoning amendments we've been working on. I put pressure on a consultant. She delivered something today that it's not ready. It's not ready. So I still want to try and open the public hearing in February. To do that, I need to ask you to schedule a special meeting so that gives the consultant 3 more weeks to work on these proposed zoning amendments. And I'm hoping that we could meet possibly on Zoom because it's so hard to reserve a room, January 31st. I will also say that I have heard from many people that they feel that we should keep the number of zoning amendments to just the one big one, the MBTA zoning. At last week's meeting, I heard opposing views. Just do the MBTA because that's such a hard sell. The MBTA zoning is just kind of like something that I don't think anyone really wants to do it or likes it. But we have to do it. The state is forcing us to do it. And so we're just trying to do it the best way we can that will do the least amount of harm to the town, and we'll get the most out of it. The other zoning amendments, I view as something that is good for Middleton and that people would like. It's making the allowing 2 families by right instead of special permit. It's allowing, I call them in-law apartments, but they're accessory dwelling units. The third one is inclusionary zoning. We need affordable housing. The first reason is just because our kids can't live in the same town that we live in. There's no homes for sale. The second is to protect us from 40Bs, and a lot of people know about the 40B that is being permitted right now with the ZBA. The developer has rights to build these and bypass our zoning if we don't have 10% affordable housing. So these other zoning amendments were to hopefully increase that amount of affordable housing. But the worst case scenario is we wait a year and we bring them up at spring town meeting in 2025. And that's what I've been hearing. It hurts because I was eager to present some feel-good zoning. I hope it would make people feel good, but I have heard from a lot of people that we should concentrate on just the MBTA zoning and get that passed first, and then spend a year refining all the other zoning. And so I'll leave it up to the board to discuss.
My personal thoughts is I think a lot of the way we structure the town warrant and the way we put this forward will make a huge impact on how much success we'll have getting approval. I think with 3A being the hard, MBTA being the hard sell, I believe it should go later than some of the easy wins that I think we can accomplish, such as of right multifamily housing options, accessory dwelling units by right. Those two I've circled in particular because I think those are slam dunks. I think that we've talked about that numerous times here at our meetings, where, you know, if there was a lot of question at town meeting over the specific warrant articles, that one of us could step up and I'll volunteer to do accessory dwelling units by right if someone else wants to take multifamily units, to help answer any questions as planning board representatives at town meeting. But those two in particular, I think, should come before 3A, and they should be separate warrant articles, not bundled together.
I tend to agree in that I think the articles that are good for Middleton in our way, rather than the 3A state's way, I think that will be better digested by the townsfolk. I think that, you know, the 3A thing, our hand is forced. You know, they can debate it all day long, but it's going to have to happen, so it doesn't really make a difference. But I agree with Anthony that at least two of these things should go in prior to the discussion of the 3A to make sure that we have a couple of slam dunks for the people that want to put their in-laws next door or whatever it is they want to do.
And I think that'll make it easier
positive.
to have wins in 2025 as well. Are we in 2024? We are.
Yeah.
Yes.
2025 as well, because we'll be able to come back a year from now, right, and say, look, we started slow. We took baby steps. We passed, you know, these 3 articles. Nothing's on, the town didn't change drastically. We didn't see huge increases in traffic. We realized that people will realize that zoning doesn't equal production, especially when it comes to 3A, depending
Yeah.
on how we pursue the 3A article. But, you know, I think just getting those few passed would be helpful in getting the rest passed in 2025.
I think it's a positive, if we can put good out there and then ease them into, you know, the MBTA, I think that's kind of a good thing. It would make it more, I believe, would make it more palatable for everybody.
I mean, to a certain degree, we can present it as like, look, we're beating them to the punch by doing what we want to do
Yeah.
before we, you know,
We're forced.
before we're forced to do it.
So what I'm hearing, though, you're not including inclusionary, which could be a little more confusing
Right.
and harder to sell. You
I don't
just want to
people
go forward.
My fear is that people will misconstrue and try and lump together the inclusionary and the 3A, and they won't necessarily, if we put them in the same warrant article. If we do, I'm okay going forward and trying for inclusionary. I think that should go after the multifamily and accessory dwelling articles.
I did ask the consultant, because the laws have changed regarding the vote on some of these, and she wasn't even clear when I asked her. they reduced the vote to just needing a simple majority instead of 2/3 when it comes to multifamily by right. And so I asked her, does that apply to accessory dwelling units? Does it apply to two families? Because multifamily usually means 3 or more. But multifamily also means commercial, so people define it differently. So she's checking on that for me. And so you can't lump a 2/3 majority one, obviously, with a simple majority. And so the ones that need a simple majority should be grouped together. But I do agree, inclusionary is probably the tougher sell.
And I think we could spend 40 minutes to an hour talking about inclusionary zoning because it's so comprehensive that we could spend a ton of time at town meeting answering questions on inclusionary zoning.
Right.
And it sounds a
as
lot
soon
like
as-
the 3A to start with.
Right, it does.
Yeah, if the public feels confused on one, they may be negative on the others. So could I ask, because I have been hearing from a lot of people to not move forward on them. If the board does want to move forward on those two that you mentioned, along with the MBTA, can I ask that you listen to the public at the public hearing, and if you feel like people are like, no way, then we don't have to go forward with it. We can drop it there if it sounds like people are up in arms and they're against it, and we can spend another year with citizen engagement,
Yeah.
teaching the public about it.
So do you mean that then we won't take a vote at that time? We'll just discuss it and let it go?
So the process for adopting zoning is first, it can be the planning board, it could be the ZBA, it could be a citizen. They have a zoning amendment they would like to propose, they give it to the select board. The select board basically just looks at it and stamps it, sends it back to the planning board to conduct a public hearing. And we have to notify a bunch of people, DHCD, MAPC, and then put a legal ad in. We conduct our public hearing, and at that time, you can fine tune it. You can make changes to it. It's best if you get it back to the selectmen before they close the warrant, so that can, in that form, it can be put in the warrant. Otherwise, sometimes you get into putting two versions of the same thing in a warrant, which can be messy. Depends upon the town, how they decide to put it into the warrant. And changes also can be made on the floor of town meeting, but that gets really messy. So, that's the process for it. And so what the planning board does is they hold the public hearing so that the residents learn about it,
Bless you.
they provide input, and then the planning board, it's called a report to town meeting. You actually make a report on this, and if you get it in on time, it's published right in the town warrant. If not, someone gets up and reads the planning board report at town meeting.
Okay.
It's usually a yay or nay. And I will say, if the planning board gives something a negative recommendation, it can't come back for another, it's either 1 or 2 years. So there's a cooling off period. But if there's no report, you're welcome to come back. You can also give a positive report.
So would we put that report together after the public hearing, before the town meeting, or do we do that report before before the public hearing?
No, it's from the public hearing, so you learn about it at the public hearing too.
Yeah.
If you weren't proposing it, that would be your time to learn about it, ask questions, let the public ask questions, and then the planning board would say, do we like this or do we not like this?
Yeah.
And make a report. In this case, it's one of your own, and so obviously you're probably gonna like it and give a positive recommendation, unless you feel that the public needs to learn more about it, and you can spend another year, and you can hold back on it.
Okay.
Okay.
So is everyone available to meet January 31st? So that hopefully we have some
Works for me.
solid. I will say too, for citizen engagement, I'm planning at the end of next week to make a video with our consultant. She wants to go out on site at some of the locations in town and actually, report. She's putting together what we're going to say in the video. And she's also putting together a survey. I asked her, we had a long meeting today, and I said, So as we talked about each of the possible zoning amendments, I said, keep in mind questions to ask the public. There's options, there's options on all of these zoning amendments. Like what kind of development guidelines do you want to provide? Do we want to provide development guidelines for two families by right? Now that they're not by special permit, we have no one overseeing it, so maybe we could throw in guidelines such as no parking in the front yard, or, just things like that, or proper screening. So those are the things that residents feel afraid about when we say we're going to allow something by right and no board is overseeing it.
Yeah.
The accessory in-law, in some towns, it can be very contentious.
I think as long as it's well-defined,
Yeah,
that helps. And if we can put that definition in the report, in the warrant, for the warrant article, that would help.
right. I will say the accessory in-law that we're looking to put forth and that you'll see soon is one that doesn't require that it be a family member. It can be anyone, but it has to be owner occupied at all times. But it isn't limited to a family member. So it can be viewed as additional affordable housing in town. Although it isn't deed restricted, we wouldn't ask for it to be deed restricted as such. Usually they're being let out to family members in most cases. But you will see that as soon as I have them, so that you can start going over them and taking a look at them.
Question for you regarding 3A. Is it possible to put forward two versions or two options at town meeting? Let's say we, as a board, collectively butt heads over where we want to put the MBTA zones, and half of us say, I want all 50 acres and all 750 units zoned where Ferncroft is. And the other half of us says, well, we'd like some of them there, but we'd also like some on the North Andover line. We'd like some closer to, the, Market Basket area of 114. And we can't come to an agreement. Is there potential to put forward both options at town meeting and let the town decide which direction to go?
I think that's a good thing to figure out at the public hearing, once you start hearing from residents talking. I can tell you that she's looking at two particular areas right now. And one, you were at the public forum. We got a lot of people that were looking at the IH zone and at Bostic. Those are two areas where what we're trying to do is stay away from 114 because the traffic problem in Middleton, and those are pretty far away from 114. And also we could play with the densities, so it isn't as scary, 15 units per acre. If you have more than 50 acres you're providing, you can spread that density out, so it's only maybe 8 units per acre. Or parts of it could be 20 units per acre, and some could be 4 units per acre. So there's all kinds of variations, and she is putting together the maps and running it through. They have a computer program that tells us if it meets the state's guidelines.
Can we get hands-on on that computer program and play around with it a little bit too? And figure out how
Wouldn't that be nice if we could just put it up
I would
online?
be happy to have
that was accessible to
Sim
us, where
City,
we
right?
could,
Remember
yeah,
Sim
exactly,
City?
we could kind of build our own
Right,
MBTA zone
but
and
I
just
forget
play
if
around with it and say, what does it look like if we did this? And
did I mention the surveys that we're gonna do?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So for
Yeah.
each of these, we're going to have several questions that residents can answer, and the survey will be online. I'm hoping to get it up on the changeable message board in front of the library. We're gonna get that up about the public forum and about the survey. What else? And we have newsletters going out. We have another public forum scheduled for January 31st. It will be at the library. So we're doing a lot. We're meeting with the Council on Aging.
What time is that compared to
Time
our
as
meeting?
ours?
Why do,
Ours
Oh,
is
so we have a meeting
Our
same
Zoom
day.
is January 30th.
January 30th, I'm sorry.
Oh,
It's a
30th.
Tuesday,
Oh, okay.
January 30th. Yeah, it's really busy. very busy. And we've got a 40B going too. But,
Okay.
we're doing it.
Is that essentially what the town planner's report was?
No, I've got more, believe me. Okay. Every year I do a budget. Since I started here over 10 years ago, when I first came here, even my salary was split into the planning board half and half in the ZBA budget. Since then, I was able to convince them to put it in just planning board. I also have a master plan committee budget. They all have little amounts of money in them, but I have to keep track of them and make sure that, each month we've accounted for the money spent out of them. It's just very confusing. And so in order to streamline, I have asked that it all be combined into a planning budget. This is what happens when you're a small town. It's in small budgets for the committees because there's no planner. There's no one running the show. It's just all small committees, and the chairman will sign the invoices, etc. That's what I inherited. I'm asking to combine it all together. I thought it would be a good idea in order to convince them that if I got the planning board to agree to this and have the chairman sign a letter saying, I think it's a good idea, and give that to them. I'm also asking the ZBA to do that, just so they don't think that they're stepping on anyone's toes by taking away a planning board budget and calling it the planning budget. It all comes from the same, I'm the one who signs everything. It's just, this is in order to streamline the budget.
Simplifies your life, it
Yeah.
makes things easier for.
Yep.
Sounds like a
You all
no-brainer.
keep,
yeah.
you have allowances for mileage, if you ever go to trainings, you have a fund for going to trainings, if you want to go to trainings. It's all still there, it's just all in one budget.
I want to go to training in California. No, that sounds like an easy decision.
Yeah.
Let's make your life simpler and get that
Okay,
done.
good, then I'll have you sign a little letter for me. And then also, I promised the Affordable Housing Trust that I would put this on the agenda, but the planning board doesn't really even deal in the site plan review process. It's, the Affordable Housing Trust would like to be reviewing projects with housing in it. We don't do site plan review, but we do deal with special permits right now for 2 families. They would like to be part of that process, and we still have to think about how to do this, because it just adds weeks on.
Yeah.
It takes time. They only meet monthly, maybe, or quarterly. Is it monthly?
Monthly for now, but I could see once things start rolling, that it could go to every other month and then eventually quarterly.
Yeah, it's fine when everyone's meeting, like the planning board and ZBA always meet every month, and so it's not too difficult to get things on the agenda for the planning board to make recommendations for permits, but that's what the Affordable Housing Trust would be doing for both planning board and ZBA. I'll have to put some thought into it, because I'm not even sure how I'm gonna be able to handle that. Make sure that when we get an application, we don't have the public hearing before the Affordable Housing Trust has reviewed it. So is everyone open to the idea of receiving input from the Affordable Housing Trust for their decisions?
I like the idea. I think that we should have a minimum threshold, though, as to when they need to get
Yeah.
involved. If it's a two resident thing, it's probably not worth your time.
Right.
But
If it's-
if you got 5 or 10 or whatever it is, then absolutely.
Yeah. I definitely think there should be structure around that.
Maybe like 5 is the
Yeah.
minimum, or
Yeah.
8.
Do you want me to put it on the agenda for a full discussion some night, or do you think this is enough? I'm telling you that I'll just work on it, and then I'll ask the chair to put it on an agenda when,
I mean, yeah, talk to the ZBA and see if they see what their threshold would be, and if we could find a matching threshold of like 5, 8, 10, whatever it
I
is.
think 8 is good. What is our, where does affordable housing come in? How many units in Middleton?
We're looking for 10%, right? A minimum of 10%, so that's 1 out of every 10. That's why I'm saying if it's 8, if we can get it
Yeah.
1 out of every 8, we can start gaining on the,
right, but we don't have
Requirement of having
inclusionary
10%.
zoning yet, so we don't require
We don't do
any
that
affordable.
here.
The only affordable we have received so far is because it was in return for granting a variance or a special
Okay.
permit or something like that. In a case where you're asking to build in industrial land, you know,
Yeah.
and so,
They give you.
yeah.
Oh, so we don't have any.
Okay, I'll talk to the ZBA about that, and I think it'll help when we revise our zoning bylaw too, so that maybe we can incorporate the Affordable Housing Trust right in our zoning, saying that they're gonna provide input somehow. Okay, that's all I had.
All right, any committee reports? Oh, good. Any items not reasonably anticipated by myself or Katrina? Last 48 hours?
What time are we thinking for the 31st?
7 o'clock.
Okay.
And you'll send out the link, Katrina?
Pardon?
You'll send the link out?
Yep. Yep, when I post the agenda, yeah.
Do you have anything?
I didn't have anything. I'm here to learn how the process works.
Oh, okay.
I know
All right.
Katrina, we've exchanged number of emails over the last couple of
okay.
years, but I'm curious as to how the planning board works and how it integrates with the rest of town government and things like that.
It's a spaghetti
Can you
factory.
join the board? Feel free, I mean, if you wanted to show up, feel free to join the board. I think do we still have an open?
We have an open.
We do have an open slot, that's right.
We are looking for members.
I will consider it.
That would be wonderful.
We will consider that consideration.
Yeah, because at the last
Very
meeting,
funny.
you almost didn't have a supermajority for that special permit.
Yes,
right.
we knew.
All right, everybody gets to go home, it's Miller time. Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.